You probably don't even know this. For the first million years of humanity, marriage did not exist at all. Then how did every family survive? The answer lies buried inside a bone thousands of years old. Level 1. About 2 million years ago, across the vast savannas of Africa, a group of early humans walked with tired feet and empty stomachs. Yet, in their eyes, burned an unbreakable will to survive. Among them was our oldest known ancestor, Homo erectus, whose story still lies buried beneath the earth. Scientists, digging through the earth year after year, examining their bones, teeth, and fossils, uncovered a surprising truth. In human society at that time, there was no defined institution called marriage. Love existed, but it had no name. Relationships then were open to one single partner. There was no rule of lifelong commitment. A group of men and a group of women, they all lived together. They laughed together, and they wept together. They hunted together and shared their food together. No one wanted more than another. Children were born within this large group, but for no child was there one specific father. There was ever a need to identify, because the whole group was that child's family. Every single adult shared responsibility for that child. At this time, nature's law was the greatest power. For survival, staying close to one another was the only way.
Level 2.
But nature never stays still. Everything changes with the flow of time, slowly, silently. In a slow transformation spanning hundreds of thousands of years, the human brain began to grow larger. New thoughts and new emotions were born. But this larger brain came with a cost. Human infants were born incomplete, completely helpless, for a much longer time than other animals young. They needed constant care, year after year. Without rest, women grew weaker while raising their children, their bodies tired, sleepless eyes. Yet the tenderness in her heart remained unbroken. Unable to go hunting for long periods, the fear of hunger was a daily reality. In this situation, nature devised a new strategy, a silent evolutionary solution. Men began to understand that if they stayed beside one specific woman and her child to protect them, then that child's chances of survival increased greatly. And the child who survives carries its father's traits into the next generation. To nature, this was the greatest reward. Thus, under nature's harsh yet beautiful law, the first long-term pair bond was born. What scientists call pair bonding, this was the first seed of marriage. Not a law, not a ceremony, just a silent promise of love and survival. Level 3. But how can we be certain that this is true, that love is truly this ancient? The answer lies deep beneath the earth. Where time itself had come to a stop, archaeologists in Germany and Siberia, Russia, discovered some extraordinary graves that changed the course of history. There it was found, a man and a woman's skeletons lying side by side, their hands still clasped together, buried at the same time, with equal care, laid to rest together, as if no one wished to separate them. These graves are estimated to be 27,000 years old. Yet the language of love feels as clear as today. In these graves, matching jewelry was found, and matching tools, suggesting they held equal social standing. Their bond was deep and recognized. This is the first solid scientific evidence that humans formed such deep, long-lasting bonds with one another, bonds that even death could not separate. This discovery shows us clearly that love existed long before modern civilization. Within the human heart, level 4. We often think that love or long-term relationships are only a modern human story, but science tells a completely different story. Neanderthals too, pour ancien texte relative, formed long-term pair bonds with one another by examining the chemical elements in their tooth enamel. Scientists uncovered a remarkable truth. Women often moved from one group to another in search of a new, unfamiliar life. This was the earliest sign of exogamy, where partners began to be sought outside one's own group. This way, inbreeding within blood relations was avoided, another silent protective strategy of nature. This behavior was not merely a biological strategy, it was an important step in building society, where bonds formed between different groups, hostility decreased, and new knowledge was exchanged. Level 5. Today, when we imagine marriage, a shining ring, a colorful bridal dress, red vermilion, and a grand ceremony, but to ancient humans, symbols of a bond were completely different. Fa simple, yet deeply meaningful. On some, a permanent tattoo-like mark, a silent mark that never faded. On some, a necklace made of seashells. On some, a bracelet carved from bone. All of this meant one was no longer alone, that someone stood beside them. These symbols were not just for beauty. They were a silent declaration to society. I am now bound. I have one specific partner. See me differently now? This symbolic language was humanity's first social contract, silently telling everyone about a bond, without a single word. Level 6. About 12,000 years ago, humans left behind the life of hunting and gathering and began farming, and with this, everything changed. Forever, land became property, livestock became wealth, grain storage became a symbol of power, and wherever there is wealth, there arises the urge to protect it and a new anxiety over inheritance. Marriage was no longer just about love or survival. It became a formal agreement of wealth exchange between two families. The bride became a kind of valuable gift, and dowry became the first written or spoken record of that agreement. From here began a completely new form of marriage, where economics and politics entered, even into the most personal of human bonds. Level 7. Once the idea of property emerged, a new, complicated question arose in society. Whose child is this, really? Men wanted to be certain that their hard-earned property would reach the right child. From this desire, society began imposing restrictions on women's freedom. Strict rules of monogamous marriage were imposed, but surprisingly, this rule was enforced mainly upon women. The option of having multiple partners for men remained in many societies, but for women, that door was closed forever. From the pharaohs of Egypt to the kings of ancient Mesopotamia, many powerful men kept multiple wives.
But why?
Which was a symbol of their power and wealth. This is how marriage slowly became a powerful tool of control, a symbol far more of control and inheritance than of love. Level 8. As civilization advanced, religion drew marriage under its own sacred shadow.
Why?
In ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Indian subcontinent, marriage became a sacred vow made before the gods. A priest, specific chants, and rituals became attached to this bond, circling the sacred fire 7 times, taking vows in the name of a specific deity. These customs were created so that no one would dare break the marriage. Marriage was no longer just a private decision between two people. It became a sacred bond approved by the whole society and religious institutions. From here were born many of the wedding rituals we know today, which, for thousands of years, has remained almost unchanged. Level 9. In different corners of the world, the form of marriage also varied. Each culture shaped this bond in its own way. In some Tibetan communities, polyandry was practiced where one woman married multiple brothers so that family land would not be divided. In many African communities, polygyny was practiced where one man kept multiple wives, and this was seen as a symbol of social status and wealth. In ancient Sparta, the main purpose of marriage was to produce strong warriors. There, more than love, physical strength was given greater importance. Yet, in some nomadic communities, marriage was much more flexible. Relationships changed according to the group's needs. This diversity teaches us that marriage is not a single, universal rule. Rather, each society shaped this institution according to its own needs. Level 10. Reaching the medieval era, marriage became an entirely family-controlled decision. The family elders decided who would marry whom. There was no place for love in this. Family lineage, landholdings, and political alliances, these became the main criteria for arranging marriage. From European royal families to ordinary farming families of the Indian subcontinent. In almost every culture, this practice continued for hundreds of years. At that time, the idea of marrying for love was rare, almost equivalent to rebellion. Doing so could put the entire family's honor at risk. Level 11. But history never stays still. During the Industrial Revolution, amid factory smoke and the sound of machines, the entire world changed. The spread of women's education and new ideas of personal freedom together redefined marriage once again. People began to understand that marriage was not only a family decision, it could also be a relationship chosen by one's own will. Gradually, love marriage became normal, not forced, but rather a decision made by mutual consent. By the 20th century, women's rights across the world, personal freedom and equality grew stronger, and marriage became more personal, more human. Level 12. So, what does the final answer come down to? Yes, ancient humans did marry, but not with rings, papers, or legal documents like today. They first bonded out of the intense need to survive, then out of the urge to protect property, then under the strict rules of society and religion, and finally, by their own free choice. In every era, the form of marriage changed, but one thing never changed: that deep longing within human beings to not be alone, to survive beside someone, to share the weight of life with someone. Today, even after thousands of years, the same question remains in all our minds: do we truly bind ourselves to each other out of love, or are we merely finding a new, more civilized form of survival? Perhaps the answer is both, because love and survival, these two were never truly separate.